Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Designing Midlife podcast. Today, we have a special guest that has found her path to combining her lifelong passion for travel into her purpose as well. If I had to describe Lisa James with one adjective, it would absolutely, without a doubt, be fearless. She is fearless in how she has raised her kids, how she's lived her life, her adventures, and she's also sharing with us how she gets her amazing travel deals. This is episode 6, ladies. Stay tuned for the Adventurous Midlifer story. Let's go.
You're listening to Designing Midlife, a podcast about today's midlife woman. Ladies, we're more youthful, active, and demanding than any midlife generation before. Join Taj as she dispels the notion of crisis, learn to conquer in all facets from health to career, and design the midlife of your dreams.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. You may already feel a laughter in my expression. I'm here with the fabulous Lisa James. Lisa James is a 54-year-old empty nester who started Adventurous Midlifer to encourage and inspire other midlifers not to be afraid to travel. Her philosophy is there is no expiration date on having an adventure except when we expire. I love that so much, Lisa. Lisa, thank you again for being with us today. How are you doing? Share with our listeners. How's it going today?
I'm doing great. I feel it's an honor that you invited me to even speak, to know that my voice wants to be heard. I love that. But I'm doing great today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. When I came across you or your content, I reached out, and I'm like, hey, let's talk because, we're kind of like on the same path. And, I loved, everything that you were sharing and putting out there. And I particularly felt inspired because you have this deep commitment to travel. And most people don't look to travel from that perspective, right? We're just like, oh, we need to plan our yearly vacation or whatever it is. But this has been a serious part of your life's journey. You have prioritized that. So
Correct.
can you please share with our listeners, where did this passion for travel come from?
It was actually quite accidental.
Mhm.
My children were 5 years old at the time, and they attended this really prestigious prep school on the Upper West Side in New York.
Okay.
And they were there on scholarship. And so, we were around extremely affluent people. David Hasselhoff, Lenny Kravitz's daughter, it was a very affluent population. And that was really my first experience navigating that kind of population. And the first year they were there, every break, the kids would have this project where they had to create this book and pictures and bring in stuff from their vacation. And so the first year you had these kids that went to their summer homes in Umbria, and you had these kids that, one of the parents owned Casa de Campos, not a unit,
Right.
owned all of Casa de Campos in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And you had kids who were going to the Hamptons and, Mamaroneck, Montauk,
Right.
and I felt some kind of way. It was kind of like, we get caught up in the whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was keeping up with the Leibowitzes because that was the population that I was around.
Mm-hmm.
And so that second year, I met a young lady named Monica Benjamin, and she had a daughter who was a year older. And we were talking because she was a scholarship kid too.
Mm-hmm.
She was a minority.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to talking about, hey, every year they go through this whole big to-do and our kids are home. My mom still lived in the projects.
Mm-hmm.
And we just felt some sort of way that our kids couldn't participate in that activity.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a friend that was in the Peace Corps in Guatemala. And she said, well, I have a friend in Guatemala. Let's take an adventure to Guatemala. First of all, I had no clue where Guatemala was.
Right.
It wasn't a place because this was 1999. I
Okay.
had no idea where Guatemala was. I had never been out the country, didn't have a passport,
Wow.
never traveled anywhere other than going south with the family during the summer. And so we got all excited and we were like, okay, we didn't know what the hell we were getting into. We said, all right, yeah, we're going to Guatemala.
Right.
And so, you know, the kids got excited. So back then there was no internet, there was no Instagram. So what we did was we went to the library and we rented all these VHS tapes
Right.
on Central America and Guatemala, National Geographic. And we had all these books at the house and we got so excited by looking at the books and exploring what Guatemala was.
Right.
And so that following year, we decided to backpack through Guatemala because that's the only way that we could afford to go. We could
Wow.
afford like resorts and hotels and all of that.
Mhm.
So her friend said, I'm at a hostel, didn't know what a hostel was.
Mhm.
She said, well, it's just a
Wow.
big room with a bunch of bunk beds. I was like, okay, we can do that.
Right.
And so we end up backpacking through Guatemala. And at the time, both of us were stay-at-home moms. So we didn't have any time constraints. So that summer, we just backpacked through Guatemala, and what was supposed to be like a week or two turned into almost 4 weeks.
Wow.
And my twins were 6 at the time, and her daughter was 7.
Wow.
And we threw on, well, we looked absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
Hindsight, right? We had these big backpacks packed over our heads.
Moms.
The kids had their little backpacks.
Right.
And we had, first of all, we took too much stuff, but we didn't know. It was our first
Right.
adventure and we put everything in there. And when I say my back was killing me, like, because the pack it was just too damn big.
Right.
It was just too big. And I will tell you, that was the best experience I ever had.
I can imagine.
Absolutely the best experience I ever had.
Wow. So we go through that. I mean, I totally get the overloaded backpacks. Hello, motherhood, right? We're like,
Right.
we're moms. We have young kids with us.
Yes.
So we got to pack the blanket, the favorite toy. They
Yes.
like all of the things, right?
Everything.
Just to make sure
Yes.
they're comfortable and not driving us crazy. So I get that. So you came back like just feeling mind blown, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It was definitely mind blowing. And, you know, we look at the pictures from the activity they had to do at school when they came back. And like,
Yeah.
we cherish that because, you know, they drew the little picture of Guatemala and all the
Yeah.
exciting things that they were able to capture at 6 years old. It just planted a seed in me. It
Mhm.
planted a seed in me and it planted a seed in my children. It had a profound effect on my children, surprisingly, that
Mhm.
lasted. You know how, you know, you take your kid to serve food to the homeless, right? And you want them to have that empathy for someone who may not be as fortunate as you.
Yep.
And, you know, we do that in a silo. We do it one time for Christmas or Thanksgiving, and
You're
we
right.
think that the seeds are going to be planted. A lot of times, 2 days later, the kid is, you know, being selfish, wants the latest toy, no concept of what you were trying to teach 2 days before. But it lasted. My kids came back because we were in remote villages. We weren't in any touristy place. This was, you know, 1999. The infrastructure wasn't there.
Wow.
And we were in places that they had never seen Black people, that never seen Black children. We were in places that there was no refrigeration, no electricity. And so experiencing that and immersing ourselves in it, because that's all that we can afford at the time,
Right.
it left a profound effect on them. When we got home, you know, they wanted to, we volunteered at an orphanage for about 5 days. And they wanted to pack all their stuff up and all their books, and they wanted to send it back to the orphanage. Like, their whole attitude about things changed, even at 6. And with the continued conversation of, you know, is it necessary? You know, that excess, is it necessary?
Mhm.
So that seed was planted, and then it just made me hungry for more. And
Mhm.
so I knew, from that experience, I always thought international travel was cost prohibitive,
Mhm.
that it was for a certain echelon of people.
Mm-hmm.
because that's the imagery you get in magazines. Whenever you see commercials about travel, it's always non-minorities that are
Mm-hmm.
highlighted.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
National Geographic, all of those kind of travel magazines that were out then
Mm-hmm.
didn't depict everyday minorities.
Mm-hmm.
So what I learned from that experience is that there's levels to travel.
Mm-hmm.
You can be at, the Hilton, or you can be at the most expensive resort, or you can still go to that same country and stay in a hostel and pay $5 a night.
Mm-hmm. And still
And
feel
so,
safe, and it's okay, and still have a great time.
absolutely still feel safe and have a
Right.
great time.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we think about traveling, we pick a location, and 90% of the time we're sleeping there,
Mm-hmm.
and we're out the entire day doing whatever activities. So unless you're going specifically for a resort to just kind of lay up and do nothing and never leave the resort,
Right.
everything else, you're really just going to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So do you need that level
Mm-hmm.
if it prohibits you from traveling?
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't. There's other ways to do it. And so it just kind of, it made me realize that I can afford to travel and
Mm-hmm.
travel with my kids. I
Mm-hmm.
just did it differently. I threw on a backpack and I looked for the cheapest accommodations, and we just went out and had a good time.
Yeah. That's so profound, because you hit up on a lot of things. Because I do, and different people are popping in my mind in my circle, right? I have those that feel they need the 4 or 5 star experience to feel safe and enjoy,
Right.
the travel abroad. And then I do have also friends and associates that are very comfortable with hostels, and I'm just gone for the adventure. No, like,
Right.
nothing, that budget is not holding me back. I want to go to
Right.
Costa Rica, I'm gone to Costa Rica.
Correct.
And we had the most amazing time of our life. I can see how that experience, as your first experience, set the tone for you of, there's no restriction on adventure, and we can
Right.
do this. This is within our reach. And I can also relate very much to the inspiration being my kids, right? Because if I relate it to myself, I didn't vacation or travel much at all in my upbringing, but that was one of my priority lists for my child, that I said,
Right.
no, we're going to see the world together. We're going to explore together. And, I want to have those trips with him, and I want for him to know the world and different cultures. And, that also planted the seed in him where he more so asked for trips than a new gaming device or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He said,
Absolutely.
no, mom, where are we going to next? And so, that was wonderful. So that kind of like kicked it off, and that was year one. And then every year after, was it a big planned trip?
So after that, it was 2 years after that, 2000, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to venture by myself. My girlfriend couldn't come. And so I decided to venture by myself and take them
Okay.
on a backpacking trip. So we did Costa Rica and Panama.
Mm.
And we just backpacked through, and we were on the back of chicken buses and
No
back of pickup
way.
trucks, and hitchhiking a little, and it was an absolute adventure.
Wow.
And it just planted a seed. And they like your son, they didn't want things like we didn't. They didn't want gaming stations or Atari and all of
Yeah.
that was big back then. They didn't want any of that. They wanted to sell all the VCR tapes so that we can
Right.
get money, because that's when you could sell VCR tapes, right?
Right.
And they wanted to sell their VCR tapes and just every little thing that you can think of.
So when we had our discovery chat, and we were, I kind of feel like we were already just like old friends, because I think we laughed so much. We,
We did.
we laughed so much, and we were like, oh, girl, this is what you're doing on Pinterest, and this is what we're doing on Facebook. And I remember, and it was such a happy conversation. And I really enjoy that about this season of life that we're in, because I feel like even maybe early 30s or 20s, there's a different attitude, and there's like a tension, and people feel competitive, and attitude, and whatever comes with women, good or bad. And I feel like in midlife there's a different level of confidence, and we see each other more as sisters, and
Right.
trying to like support each other and lift each other up. And you and every conversation that I've had actually has just been really, really warm. And you shared with me during that conversation that you also took a stand that every birthday for the next 20 years, you were going to be in a different country.
Correct.
Now,
So
how did that go?
So my ex, we had worked out a situation and when he would get them. And so initially, I was raised a Muslim. My mother's a Muslim.
Okay.
And so Christmas was never a
Mhm.
thing,
Yeah.
right? So Christmas was never a thing. We don't get with family on Christmas because everybody's Muslim, right? We have Ramadan and everybody comes together as a family, but Christmas.
Mhm.
And so he would get them every Christmas break. So it was like after the first Christmas break, they're going to Puerto Rico, they're going here with their
Mhm.
dad. And I'm just like sitting home with no kids, twiddling my thumbs,
Yeah.
single as hell.
Yeah.
And I just kind of was like, all right, I take these trips with them. You know what? I'm going to take a trip by myself, just because my single travel by myself hadn't begun. After that second Christmas without anyone, that I was going to take a trip that Christmas. And so I planned it. I went back to Guatemala by myself and decided to cross the border into Belize.
Okay.
So I took a backpacking trip by myself, went back to the same little village off of Lake Atilan that, I had met people and, maintained the connection with them. Went back there because it was a level of comfort, right? I knew how to get there. I knew I was going to know people in the village, and I hung out there for like a week. And then I said, let me go on my adventure by myself. And I knew the next destination, and I just went. Crossed the border into Belize, fell in love with Belize, met some other backpackers, hung out with them for a couple of days, and then I was hooked. It was it. Like, stick the needle in my arm, give me that intravenous infusion. I just became addicted because spring break always ran around the end of March to beginning of April, which kind of overlapped with my birthday. So he would come down, and we had it down to a science. He would come down, I would leave, he would have them for the spring break, and then he would have them for a few days before I came back. So then I decided every birthday, I'm going to wake up in a different country.
Nice. And that went on for how many years?
I started my 40th birthday. My 40th was my first year that I said, I'm going to wake up in a different country for my 40th birthday. And I'm 54 now.
Wow.
Haven't missed a year except for this year.
Yeah.
With this damn COVID.
Yeah, right. That damn COVID.
I was ready for India and Sri Lanka, and COVID hit.
Wow. Listen, it's all amazing stuff. And you throughout all of these years, from when the kids were young to now, you have clearly developed an expertise and all this knowledge of, not only where you've been, how you go about doing things. And, so you're at the point now where you have launched Adventurous Midlifer, right? So has your, I guess, obviously your experience to this point is you saying, I just have to share what I know, is what made you say, I'm going to go ahead and launch Adventurous Midlifer?
When Instagram and Facebook really started popping. So it was somewhere around their sophomore year of high school. They graduated in 2013. So 2011, I started seeing these other travel brands. I think that the first that I really experienced was Nomadness Travel Tribe.
Okay.
And I remember, reading about Avita Robinson creating Nomadness. And I was just like, my kids and everybody that knew me, I was sending it to them, and they were like, well, that's kind of what you've been doing, so why don't you do something like that? And at that time, I had no concept of how to turn that into a business, right?
Okay.
Because all of this stuff was new. And so the seed was planted a long time ago, and Adventurous Midlifer grew out of, I had another name called Travel Mama. That was my first name.
Okay.
And then my next name was A Thirst for Travel. And it's funny because I look back at articles from my blog that I was launching back then that I wrote in 2011, 2012, 2013. And now I'm trying to edit them because I'm about to launch my blog. So it was a seed that was in me, and I just couldn't figure out a way. And so the plan was get them to college. They graduated high school in 2013, get them to college. And we had the conversation, sophomore year of college, I'm out.
Yep.
I'm leaving the country. I'm going to travel full time. I'm going to make a go. I'm going to become a travel blogger. I'm going to make money. I'm going to do it. It didn't work out like that. My daughter started struggling in school, and I just could not leave her. This April that just passed, my plan was to travel for a month, scope out some things because I wanted to curate small group trips. Okay. So India and Sri Lanka was one of the first places that I wanted to. One of the second places, Morocco was the first. And so I had a plan, and then COVID hit. And I was really struggling with whether or not I was going to launch it. And I did in March. And I was inconsistent at first because I was deflated. Like after all these years of wanting to do this, and now another COVID setback hits. And now it's a huge setback because we don't know what the travel industry is going to look like. Will there even be an opportunity for travel bloggers and influencers and stuff like that? Will there be an opportunity to curate trips? Will people still be afraid in 2021 and 2022? Right. So I really struggled in March whether I was going to launch. And I took a Blog Like a Boss course with a young lady named Gloria Autonomo, who I followed for years. She's called Glow Graphics. And my son actually paid for the course because the course was like $1,500. And we're old school, right? So we'll pay $50 for a course, right? $100 for a course,
or try to figure it out ourselves.
Right? So I had been trying to figure it out for months and months and months. And she was offering the course, and then she put an announcement on Instagram that she was closing the course. And my son sent me an instant message. She was like, "Isn't this your girl?" And he was like, "Her course, she's about to close her course." And I was like, "Okay." And I ain't got no $1,500 to spend for no course. I ain't spending $1,500. That ain't happening, right? Right. And he was like, "You've been talking about her for like the last 5 years. Glow, 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 glow." Like I followed her from day one, right? From 2000, I think she started like 2013, 2012. I followed her religiously. And so he knew that I was enamored with what she was doing. And so he was like, "Fine, I just paid for the course." I was blown away. Wow. Because he knew how much I wanted this. And I had been talking about it for years. Yes. And he finally said, "I just need you to stop talking about it and just do it." And he paid for the course. Wow. I took her course, and it blew my mind. When I say that was the best $1,500 that could have been spent. Wow. And I realized the opportunity. And that literally took the course in February. Finished it up, started in January, finished it up in February. Wow. Was ready, was fired up, had everything in place, was ducks in a row. I'm making calls. I'm just ready. Right. And then your cousin Corona came around. Yeah. I keep telling you about letting your cousins out. I know. Corona came.
It did. It put a monkey wrench, a serious monkey wrench.
It put a serious monkey wrench. And I have to tell you, I went into like a little, I was really messed up because everything that you had dreamt about and finally got the courage to make that pivot, and not from your own doing or your lack of, but something else puts this huge monkey wrench.
Yeah.
It was disheartening. And so I got into a little funk.
Yeah.
And she, I remember she sent me like a message because I had posted something, and she like gave me words of encouragement, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of said, you know what? Fuck it. Excuse my French. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it's going to fall, but I'm going to commit myself to, I'm going to post every day. I'm going to be engaged, and I'm going to give it 100%. And let's see where it plays out.
That's it.
And so that's what it did. And I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That, the journey is the journey, right?
It is.
And now I have to say, because I've told myself this, we have to, we still, the dream is still there. The goal is still there. We still have to pursue it, but now we have to pivot our mindset on what's
Correct.
that approach to pursue it. Right.
Correct. And what it looks like.
We can't do anything about the ugly cousin. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
who knows when it'll be gone. If I don't know, we don't know.
Right.
We don't have that timeline. But even from my observation, people are traveling. And initially I was like, wait a minute, what is happening? But people are traveling, Lisa.
And I've taken 2 trips, but domestically.
Yeah.
I never had a desire to explore the United States because
interesting.
I see enough of those other people here in the US.
Yeah.
This is why I tend to go to brown countries.
Yeah.
I have no desire to necessarily go to Europe.
Yeah.
I do want to go to Switzerland and do some hiking, right? But I've never had it's always been developing nations. It's always been, indigenous populations. It's always been brown people. That's where I pull. So I never really had a desire to explore the United States, the Midwest, and all those things that we hear about, because we walk around every day having to code switch. We walk around every day having to interact and, put on this face. When I travel, I want to take that face off. Yeah. I don't want to have to code switch. I don't want to have to, carry that armor of what we carry every day when we navigate our jobs, when we navigate the world. So that's why I consciously always chose brown countries where I don't have to wear that cloak. So traveling in the US is kind of like, what? Go to Florida? Yeah.
Right.
Utah? Yeah. Right. But since COVID hit, I needed to get out.
Right.
I think I was going through some withdrawals, and I had to get out. And my son he's a Marine officer, and he's stationed in San Diego. And so he was about to ship out for 10 months. And I was like, I can't have my baby gone for 10 months and I don't see him before he leaves. So I decided to go to San Diego. So that was the first trip I took during COVID. Nice. Yeah. And then I started doing some research and realizing that Utah and Mount Zion Park and all those places is close to Vegas. So then the wheels were turning literally a week before I was leaving to see him. And I just started doing some quick research, and I was like, you know what? I can get a flight from San Diego to Vegas for $20 and a flight from Vegas to Atlanta for $45. Wow. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to rent a car.
Wow.
And I'm going to drive and hit as many national parks as I can. I'm going to rent camping equipment because I can't afford to stay in no hotels because I don't have the money right now.
Wow.
And I am just going to go. And my son was like, just do it. Just do it. And that's what I did.
Wow. I'm glad you said that, because we want to go somewhere for Thanksgiving week. And that sounds amazing. You just fly in and rent a car and drive.
Rent a car
or park hop or whatever it is.
And that's exactly what I did. I rented a car off we're going to talk about that when I get into my budget travel stuff. I rented a car dirt cheap, not from any of the chains. I don't rent from any of the chains.
Right.
And a great company that rents camping equipment. It's very popular in the Midwest, Denver, Portland, all those places that you can rent camping equipment. And so I rented a camping package for like $59, $69 for 5 days. And it included my tent, a cooler, a headlamp, a regular lamp, a camp chair, rain cover for the tent, a sleeping mat, a sleeping bag. And there was something else.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
cooking kit.
Oh, wow.
And it was like 59 with tax, like came out to like 69, 70 bucks for 5 days. And I rented my camping equipment, looked online, saw camping spots. Some of them were like
Wow.
$12, some of them were $10. And I'd never been camping in the US ever. I said, what the hell? I'll figure it out. Worst case scenario, I'll
Right.
sleep in the car if I can't figure it out or if it's
Right.
absolutely awful.
The fearlessness is what is getting me in this conversation, because your approach to a lot of it, you just said another thing that popped my ear out a little bit, that you don't rent vehicles from the budget or the Avis or
Right.
whatever, right? So, and you do have that expertise clearly in budget travel. So, where do you not go to Google Flights for the best airfares? Do you not go to Travelocity to book the car? Like, how do you, tell us, how do you go about that type of stuff? Where do you find, if you want to go into a hotel, or do you prefer Airbnb?
So I absolutely use Google Flights.
Okay.
I absolutely love Skyscanner,
Skyscanner.
because
Okay.
Skyscanner, I can put in, if I want to see where the cheapest place in the world to go to,
Mm-hmm.
flying out of Atlanta or flying out of Fort Lauderdale, I can
Yeah.
literally put Fort Lauderdale and I can put anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll give me the entire world. And it will break down from the lowest cost to the highest cost. So I can
Wow.
literally scroll visually and
Yeah.
see that, Belize is running about $150, or Croatia's running $250. And I visually can see all the costs for everywhere in the world.
Wow.
And
And that's
so
skyscanner.com.
that's skyscanner.com.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's a search feature that you don't
Yeah.
know where you want to go, and you literally put anywhere and it will search the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I travel. Like, I'll look at what is my budget,
Mm-hmm.
and then I will search on Skyscanner,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll see maybe Malaysia. I want to go to Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
and I will see that Malaysia is, I'll give you an example. And this goes into the budget travel tip. So what I do to get the cheapest flight is, when people book long haul flights, right? Say you're going to Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
there's always a stop.
Right.
There's no direct flight from North America straight into Thailand,
Right.
right? There's
Right.
none.
Right.
So there's going to be a stop based on what airline you fly with,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're going to Thailand and you're on Turkish Airs, or you're on one of the other Arab airlines,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to more than likely have a stop in Qatar or Dubai or
Mhm.
Abu Dhabi. That's just the way the airlines work. I only book nonstop flights. So when I'm going to Thailand from Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
I can get a direct flight into Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be cheaper than if I say I want to book a flight from Atlanta to Thailand, because it's going to put me on that Kuala Lumpur flight
Okay.
with a connection to Thailand.
Right. Right.
And it may cost me $800,
Mm-hmm.
but I can fly direct to Kuala Lumpur for $480,
Mm-hmm.
and then get an in-country flight on Air Asia for $20.
Girl, stop. Yes.
Listen, I tell people all the time, you know what the pushback I get?
Right.
I'm not doing all of that.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
just like, but technically you are doing it. The
Yeah.
only difference is your second leg. This is what I tell people. This is the perk. So when I went to Thailand, I flew nonstop into Kuala Lumpur.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed 3 days in Kuala Lumpur so I can see that country,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then Air Asia is the best in-country airline when you're in Asia. Air Asia is the best. Then I caught a $25 flight that I booked literally the day before to fly into Bangkok.
Wow.
And so I'm paying for that first leg, and coming back, I do the same thing. I take Air Asia to Kuala Lumpur, and then I take my nonstop flight back into Atlanta.
Wow.
And there's multiple benefits from it. One, you get to see another country,
Mm-hmm.
right? Two, you're on a nonstop flight. You're in control of how long your layover is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get another flight out of Kuala Lumpur 3 hours after you arrive, you can do that,
I love
right?
that.
But if you want to maximize your vacation,
Yeah.
spend 48 hours to see that other country.
Right. I love that because yeah, people will say, I can't be bothered. Let me just book the
Right.
right.
But to me, it's easier.
Yep. Yep. No, how you broke it down, it is a lot easier because
It's easier.
I have my cousin got married in Bali a couple years back. And when her mom was flying over, they had an 8-hour layover in Qatar. And they were trying to say, oh, well, can we like get a driver and drive around for a couple of hours? And they were just too nervous to do that.
Correct.
Where they
Correct.
could have easily spent 24 or 48 hours in Qatar and then went over into Bali easily.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just managed it differently. It really doesn't take more time.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I tell people, search where you want to go. Look at where the stop is. Then search for a nonstop flight to that stop.
Yeah.
And you will always get a cheaper, it will always come out cheaper.
So are you timing also travel? You're using Skyscanner as a tool. I think I've never used Skyscanner. And are you also timing travel when you see those deals are hitting, or do you just luck out and always finding those deals?
So because I always plan for my birthday,
Okay.
April,
Got
my
it.
birthday's
Okay.
April 8th.
Okay.
So when I begin to look,
Yeah,
it might
okay.
be, I'm just, it might be, I have a tendency, I never know where I'm going in concrete,
Okay.
right? Until usually the last moment.
Got it.
I
Okay.
have an idea of where I want to go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I start there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do Sri Lanka.
Right.
And so I started looking at flights.
Okay.
What was the hub to get into India? What was the
Okay.
cheapest way? What was a nonstop flight? Where do I have to fly into and things like that?
Okay.
So sometimes the price will dictate where I go, and sometimes I know where I want to go. Like when I wanted to go to Bali, I wanted to go to Bali.
Right.
And so I flew into Kuala Lumpur. Direct flight. It was pretty cheap.
Got
and
it.
then took Air Asia from Kuala Lumpur into Jakarta.
Right. Listen, you can just, and you may already do it, but I mean, people will use your service just for booking those excursions because you have a knack for it, but sometimes people just feel overwhelmed with the whole idea
Correct.
of it, right?
And it's easier.
It's
I think it's easier.
Yeah,
I think it's easier. And
how do you go about
country.
that? How do you go about finding those car deals? Now you're traveling domestically, you've gotten into that groove, and how do you find those car deals?
So actually a friend turned me on to car rental service called Turo. Turo. Turo car rental.
Okay.
I had never heard of it.
Right.
So Turo is the Airbnb for cars.
Ah, okay.
So literally, I have 2 cars. I decide I want to rent out my other car at my house. Right. You go on and you book it.
Right.
And you pay whatever per day.
Right.
And it's always cheaper.
Right.
What I like about Turo is you don't get all those taxes. You don't get all those airport fees. You don't get because you can get a car for $20 on Hertz. Right. And then by the time you get to the airport and they total it out, all those additional fees, you're at $50, $60 a day.
Right.
Turo, it's a set percentage that you're going to pay. It's nowhere near the airport.
Right.
The other thing I like about Turo is it's a very easy booking system, and there's so many cars to pick from. If I want a Lamborghini for the day, go ahead and drop that $300 and get a Lamborghini. If I want a Tesla with the wings, if I want a Corvette, if I want a Jeep Wrangler, if I just want a little Nissan Sentra because I'm just going to be bouncing around to the mall at the place that I'm going to. If I want an SUV, the variety of cars is amazing. It's a simple process. Literally, I did my Toro in Vegas. I told them I was flying into the airport. They gave me a destination that I took an Uber for like $8.
Yep.
You go, you text them and tell them you're at the car. They unlock it remotely. There's a lockbox on the floor.
Yeah.
They give you the code. You open it, you take your key out, and you're gone.
And you're gone. You're gone. I have heard of that service, the car service, or the Airbnb of cars, but I didn't know it was true. I've never looked into it, but very, very interesting. It's good to get your testimonial on it. And I'm happy to hear that you are exploring the States. I mean, do you
I am.
feel that you'll be doing more of that due to COVID? You're going to explore more. And where have you been since COVID?
I did Vegas.
Yeah, beyond the Vegas and
Arizona,
San
and
Diego.
Utah.
Yeah.
And then I just decided to go see my nephew in Denver.
Okay.
And I flew into Denver. For some reason, Denver flights round trip was something like $50 recently.
Wow.
So I saw it and I was like, yeah, I never been to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So I rented it. I bought the ticket and I did a Toro. When I got there, I got like a Nissan Altima and I paid like $19 a day. I know all the little tricks, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to go to the national park. And there is what they call the Three Lakes hike. And it's Emerald Lake. There's like 3 lakes. It's 2.5 miles, but it's 2.5 miles. It's a hike. And you see these 3 beautiful lakes. I just decided to go up to Estes Park.
Wow.
And I didn't camp out. I found a like a resort really cheap on Agoda, and stayed at the resort one night. Got up the next morning.
What was that? What was that website for the resorts?
No, for Agoda.
Okay, Agoda.
Agoda.
Okay.
And I just booked one night on Agoda. The entrance fee to get into the park is $35.
Okay.
Right? But if you arrive at the park before 6 a.m., you pay nothing.
Okay.
So
right.
I was up at 5:30.
Yeah, and you want to, I always say when I go to those parks, I want to see the sunrise anyway, because that's a big part of the experience.
Exactly. And so, you know, that's another tip, because the rangers will tell you we are manned from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
If you enter the park before 6 a.m., there's no fee.
Okay.
So that's with mostly all the national parks. There are some that require you to still have a permit to come in, especially under COVID. A lot of the parks, like Zion and stuff like that, have come up with these limiting the number of people to ensure that there's no crowding.
Right.
So you have to go online and book it beforehand. But parks that don't require that and just have an admittance fee, there's a time frame from when the park is open to the park closes. So you're required to pay at the ranger station between that time. If you enter beforehand, you're fine. And most of the rangers will tell you that.
And so there's no gate or anything. You just go in?
There's no gate. You just go in. Right.
Okay.
And so that's the majority of the parks. There are very few parks that will say no admittance before opening.
Got it.
But it's very few parks. So that's another way to save money on seeing the national parks. But if anybody plans on seeing at least 3 national parks in a year, buy the membership. It's only $80 a year. And so I learned that on my last trip, that it's $80 a year. So I'm actually going to invest and buy it, because there's a few more national parks, and it's in the national parks in the United States.
Right.
It's not just a particular state.
Right.
It's any national park. It's any land management park. It's any there's another entity that manages the parks. And so all of those parks are included, and the membership is only $80 a year.
But these are all very beautiful scenic destinations. Denver,
Absolutely.
Utah.
Yes.
They're all extremely, extremely beautiful. And, you know, and it's also the outdoors. So in considering COVID, that's a great option to explore for travel. What about from the safety perspective? How was the airport for you? How was that entire experience? And, are the different cities varying in terms of requiring masks and how strict they are in terms of social distancing? Or did you really feel comfortable?
I did. My spirit.
Hmm.
I flew Spirit to Denver and flew Southwest coming back.
Okay.
And when I went to Vegas, I flew Delta, Spirit, and American.
Okay.
So I go with the cheapest, right? So I'm
Right.
not loyal to one
Right.
airline. So
Hmm.
I go with the cheapest. So I do have to say that Spirit does not have it down pat.
Okay.
Spirit is not keeping a middle seat open. Spirit is not doing a lot of work to ensure, even when you're lining up to go down the runway to
Yeah.
get on the plane, they're
Space.
not doing
Yeah.
enough. They're
Right.
not doing enough space. They are making everyone wear a mask. They are reiterating throughout the entire flight that to wear a mask appropriately, you must cover your nose, because
Hmm.
people seem to think that they cannot cover their nose. I don't
Right.
know what that's all about.
Right.
Your
Right.
chin, yes, but honey,
Right.
cover your nose.
I don't know. People feel
So,
they can't breathe.
right, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, so Spirit did really well with making sure throughout the flight that they reiterated you must have your nose covered. What I didn't like was, but they serve snacks, which means people have to take their mask off to
To
eat or
eat.
drink,
Yep.
right? You're going around making money selling snacks. American Airlines did not do that.
Mm.
They left the middle seat open
Mm-hmm.
and they required masks. They did a scattered boarding to allow people. So they said, do it in fives. We're going to give them opportunity. It may take a few minutes longer to load, but we're starting earlier, and we want to keep everybody safe. They were absolutely on point with the social distancing from the time that they announced the rows for people to go down the runway
Mm-hmm.
to on that little bank, and where you walk down the runway to get to the plane.
Mm-hmm.
They had someone there
Mm-hmm.
reminding them of social distancing. There was no queue as far as people all up on each other. There was someone as soon as you got on the plane, telling you to hold on, let the person get seated. You know how that tends to
Right.
get, right?
Yep.
It's a queue and everybody's on your back, and they made sure. So American Airlines did a great job. Delta did a fantastic job with the middle seat open. Southwest, they also had middle seat open. So every airline is doing it differently.
Got
I
it.
know that like Southwest and some of the other airlines, as of November 1st, it will
Mm-hmm.
no longer be middle seat open.
Mm.
Spirit never had middle seat open. The plane
Right.
is packed to the rim.
Wow.
Yes. So I didn't feel unsafe
Okay.
when I fly. I'm that girl.
Mm-hmm.
I have my shield.
Okay.
When I get on the plane, I have my shield, and then I have my mask,
Right.
right? And plenty of sanitizer, and I'm wiping down. So I didn't feel unsafe, right? I took that extra precaution for myself.
Yeah. And what about the airport? Is it packed or
No, I took videos and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a ghost town,
Yeah.
not anywhere near what we would expect from an airport. Although
Right.
that particular flight may have been full, I also saw waiting gates for other destinations that were only a handful of people waiting to board.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
they're still flying with just 10 people on a flight.
Yeah. Well, what about longer flights? You went from Atlanta to San Diego. So was that, that is what, a 6 hour
Right.
flight? Yeah.
And
Same thing.
it because the airline, they had the middle seat open.
Got it.
So I felt comfortable. The airport was,
Yeah.
empty.
Yeah.
They did serve snacks. Everything was already sealed up. They did
Mhm.
serve snacks, so people put their masks down to serve snacks and stuff like that. The first time it creeped me out a little bit, because I'm like,
Yeah.
all these people are talking and laughing and they're eating and they got their mask off.
Sure.
But then it comes a point where it's like, how much do you obsess about it? I had my mask and I had my shield. So I
You're
felt
doing
like
everything you can.
I'm doing everything I can. I mean, I can literally go to the supermarket and be behind someone at the register without my shield,
Yeah. Right.
And
You're right.
right.
Yep.
So there's a lot of debate about, the close proximity on flights. There's a lot of debate about the circulation system, but I've heard that the plane is safer as far as air quality and so
Right. The
forth.
HIPAA
So
filter. I've heard that. The
correct.
HIPAA filter
So,
is very, yeah.
I've heard so many things.
Yeah.
It's a point now, I didn't do any, this was the first traveling that I've done.
Yeah.
I was I don't think I would have done any travel in March and April because March, April, and May. I was still nervous.
No, yeah. It was very
But
intense then. Yeah.
now it's kind of like at what point do we get back to some level of normalcy? Right? There's risk in every capacity.
Yeah.
I think that if you're responsible and you take the necessary precautions, if you're really concerned, then you pay that extra money and you take a flight that that there's, keeping the middle seat open so that you feel that safety in within your own self. Wear a shield. There's things that you can do to, minimize your exposure. And I think if you're responsible and you're conscious of that, then I think you'll be fine. And it's all subjective. It's what level of comfort that you feel, that's going to dictate whether you travel or not travel.
I agree with you 100%. Listen, Lisa, it has been an absolute joy to hear the stories because, listen, I'm still writing notes, and I have to tell everyone, when you go to Lisa's Instagram page, I know you're in other locations as well, but the Instagram, your posts are so informative. Where to travel this weekend for $500, like those kinds of things that there was one post you did about wineries, and
oh yeah,
listed a location for wineries in the States. And I Googled it. I was like, what are you talking about? There's wineries. Where was that? I forget. Willamette.
Yes.
I'm like, and then I Googled Willamette. I'm like, I've never heard of Willamette. And I Googled Willamette, and they're beautiful wineries in Willamette.
Yes.
There's
and
also
3 black owned.
And 3 black owned wineries in Willamette. So there is so much good information that you have to share. And I'm glad that you took the leap and said, you know what, in spite of all of this, I am going to go ahead with the Adventurous Midlifer. What, in spite of COVID, what do you have planned for the coming months or the future for the brand?
Well, I'm debating whether I'm going to do some international traveling in December. Croatia is a place that I've always wanted to go. Croatia has been open to the US.
Yeah.
I know a few friends that have gone to Croatia since COVID.
Okay.
And I haven't decided. I'm really leaning towards an international trip in December.
Okay.
Where it will be, I don't know yet. Croatia's on the top of the list. I'm hoping some other countries open up. If they don't, it will probably be Croatia. I've done Mexico so many times, and everybody cousin going to Tulum.
Right.
So
You're right.
I will not be going to Tulum.
Every travel blogger has been to Tulum probably more than once since COVID. I've seen it. That's all that's on the timeline.
My first visit to Tulum was in 2001. And it is nothing like it is now.
Yeah.
I will not go to Tulum. There's other places.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Been there, done that. And since everybody mama going to Tulum, I'm going to go the opposite where everybody's going. Like everybody's going to Dubai. I'm not going to Dubai.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Qatar. Right. So I'm a little anal about that.
Yeah, I recently saw someone though in Mexico City a couple of days ago, and it's a very modern city.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is beautiful. Yeah, I enjoyed watching his journey, or I think he's still there going through Mexico City. A very, very cool spot.
Oh yeah, Mexico City. You would think you were in New York from the subway system. That's that's another whole podcast.
Right.
But it's the misperception that we get as Americans here.
Yeah.
People forget that there's something like 42 states in Mexico, just like in the US.
Yeah.
So what you get in Florida and what you get in Idaho is like night and day.
Yep.
So what we see on the news here is one state. that they're talking about the drug and all the,
Right.
all
Everything
the
you see in the
nonsense.
movies. Everything.
Everything you see in the movies
Right.
is really, really only a few cities within a state,
Right.
right? So think about Florida, it might be Dade County, but you got all of this over here, Palm Beach and all these other counties that, because I live in Palm Beach, I'm not going to be affected by what happens in Miami. And so we get that messaging, and Mexico is absolutely gorgeous. Mexico City is like being in New York. I promise you.
That's what I saw. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, wow. Yeah.
Just like New York.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, listen, share with the listeners where, I've mentioned Instagram. Are you anywhere else right now?
So my blog is supposed to launch
Good
any day now, right?
Good.
I've been working on this, it's work.
Right.
And everything is a learning curve. So I'm at adventurousmidlifer.com. You can go ahead and sign up and put your email in, and that way you'll get a notification when I launch. I'm on Instagram, Adventurous Midlifer, and I'm also on Facebook, Adventurous Midlifer.
Good. In tune to your Instagram posts. And I would encourage everyone that's listening that's on Instagram, go check the content out. There is so much there, where to travel with your daughter or where to travel with the girlfriends, how to find good budget travel here. There's so much good posts that you put out there. It's just, they're loaded with really good, useful information. It's not just fluffy stuff. So that's what I love about you, Lisa, that I think that really stands out with you. And I wish you all the best with Adventurous Midlifer. I am following along, and thank you for talking with me today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.